Me. Welcome back to Scissors and Scrubs. I have no idea what date it's supposed to be.
No,
but
me
are we
neither.
before or after Memorial Day? I don't know.
Not sure.
All right, but it's sometime in May. Yeah,
It's questionable.
It
May,
could be
June.
It could
Not
be
sure.
June. All right, where our sons will be in the military for 2 years.
I can't believe that.
Can you believe it's been 2 years? My son still hasn't seen the water.
My son can see it every day.
Oh, well, he's living on top of it.
Yeah.
But he has yet to be in a submarine that's actually gone under the water yet. Well, let's see how that happens.
Yeah.
Supposedly by the end of the summer, Laura,
We'll
fingers
see.
crossed, that kid's going to actually see the water.
Jack might be in Hawaii when this comes out.
Oh,
Yeah.
exciting.
Yep.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Very. So, yeah, we'll see if my son actually ever sees if the submarine he's in ever actually goes under the water in his career. All right. Anyway.
I would prefer it not to. So,
Well, I for his sake, I would like it. I would like him not to either, but he's getting a little tired of Newport News, where if you're in Newport News, you're either homeless or you're in the Navy.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Yeah.
It's pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's ready. All right. So we're talking this week. Somebody asked us to clarify what a surgical technician is. Technologist. Technologist. I should have asked Kristen.
it's a technologist because that's the study of surgical. A technician is someone who's not really trained in something.
Back in 1992, when I took my class, we were technicians. Just saying.
Oh, when I took it in 1998, it was technologist.
Well, not 5 years. I was only the second class to go through Bunker Hill. So we're going to describe what a surgical technologist is versus a surgical first assist.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Laura, take it away.
All right, according to the Mayo Clinic,
Jump
a surgical technologist, also called an operating room technician, work alongside and assist surgeons, nurses, and other members of the healthcare team throughout a surgical operation. The role of the surgical technologist is incredibly important because they ensure a sterile and organized environment, which they do.
They are the proprietors thereof.
Yep. So for a surgical technologist scope of practice, they can work in the operating room with surgeons, anesthesiologists, and nurses. Their common tasks and duties can be split into 3 phases: before the surgical operation, during the surgical operation, and after the surgical operation. Before the procedure, surgical technologists focus on sterilization and preparation. This includes sterilizing the equipment, cleaning the operating
Wrapping
room,
it,
making sure everything's clean in the room, helping with preparing the patient for surgery. Some surgical tech, it depends on where you work, what you do. Some of them prep the patient, some of them shave the patient, it all depends on where you work. They gather and arrange equipment and supplies. They, all the surgical instruments that are needed for that case. They count everything on the field to make sure nothing is left in the patient. During the surgery, they have very important responsibilities. They keep the operating room sterile. The environment.
They maintain
sterile.
the sterile environment.
Yep. They pass surgical instruments to surgeons and whoever's assisting, residents, PAs, whoever's up there. And they also can retract during the case. They can hold retractors to help the surgeon see better inside. And after the surgery, they're responsible, again, for counting all the instruments, sponges, all that, to make sure nothing's left in. Some places where they work, they apply dressings. They dispose of everything in a sanitary manner, and they maintain the sterile environment of the operating room until the patient is out of the room and into a recovery room. They can specialize in any area. They can do any surgical subspecialty, cardiac surgery, neurosurgery, transplant, literally every area of anything you can have surgery on, a surgical technologist can work in. They can work in operating rooms, outpatient centers, and doctor's offices. They spend most of the day scrubbed in, preparing for surgery. They do not get out. They're in that room all day long.
Yep.
And they're on their feet all day long. It's a strenuous environment. Like, it's hard on their bodies.
They're also the first ones usually taking a hit from the mood of the surgeon.
Oh, yeah, because they're the ones passing up. Right. So if you pass the wrong thing, they're going to yell at you.
Right next to them. You're the one that's taking the bad mood, good mood, whatever mood. You're taking you're the first line of defense.
Yeah, but we don't think of it, I don't think, because we've done it so long. But like when you first scrub in, it's hot. You're wearing a gown, you're wearing gloves, you're wearing a hat, you're wearing a mask. The lights are hot.
Yep.
The room is hot. Like the room is cool, but it feels hot when you're wearing all this stuff. You're standing up that whole
like
time,
a veal.
and you can't
just stand there
move a lot because the more you move, the more chance of a contamination. So you're not allowed to like walk around and pace. So you're kind of standing one spot, which doesn't sound so awful until you do it. And you're like, I'm going to pass out from not moving and just standing up still.
Right. And I'm hot.
Yeah.
A burn room when the heat's 100 degrees.
Oh my God, PD room when it's 1,000 degrees. They can work, days, evenings, nights, weekends, holidays. They have the same schedule as nurses. You're on all the time. People who are interested in becoming a surgical tech must be detail-oriented.
How did I do it?
It is incredibly important to ensure a sterile and organized environment in the operating room. I mean, that is literally like the most important thing. They need to make sure they have everything. They need to know what's going to be needed for the case. They should know before the surgeon asks what they're going to need. Attention to detail is essential for this role because errors
happen
and they're life-threatening. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to work well under pressure because it is a high pressure environment. Again, I think when you work there for a long time, you kind of take it for granted. Most of the time you're used to it.
Under pressure.
Right. So it's just, you're used to it. But when you first, you have to be able to work under pressure and you have to have really good communication skills.
Yes.
Because if you're like, you touch that, you're contaminated, you have to be able to say that. You have to be able to say things clearly. And
you have to be able to say to them why, because they're always the first thing to say, no, I'm not. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
And this is why.
Yeah. So surgical technologists may receive their higher education training in a community college, a vocational school, a university, a hospital, or the military. In order to become a surgical technologist, a certificate program that includes specialized education training is required. Surgical technologist training programs can be as short as 12 months for a certificate or 2 years for a combined associate degree plus specialized training. Most schools, I think, now
are going to an
associate's degree. Typical entrance requirements include a high school diploma and prerequisite courses such as anatomy and physiology, medical terminology, and microbiology. They want techs to be certified now. When we were techs, we didn't have to be certified. Now, pretty much everybody has to be certified, I think, within a year of
the certification exam,
it's ridiculous.
It was worse than the nurses' boards.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
What muscle in the eye does that? I'm like, why do you need to know this? I have no idea what
I just need to know the instrument you'd use for it.
So certification is strongly suggested and preferred by most employers. The most common is Certified Surgical Technologist, CST. It's a credential offered by the National Board of Surgical Technology and Surgical Assisting, or the NBSTSA. Surgical technologists can expect a median annual salary of $48,530. Again, that is definitely based on where you live. The Bureau of Labor Statistics expects the employment of surgical technologists will continue to grow at an average pace. This is due to advances in medical technology and more operations are being done to treat many types of illnesses and injuries. With additional experiences in education, some surgical technologists become first surgical assists or registered nurses. Others advance by specializing in a particular area of surgery. Some technologists manage central supply departments. We used to, at our hospital, a lot of times when a surgical tech was older, you couldn't stand for those cases anymore. Your body's falling apart, your back's killing you, your knees are killing you. They would go down to SPD and, decontaminate the kits, sterilize the kits, wrap the kits, and you can sit down and do that, and it's easier on your body. And you know what you're doing because you know what the instruments are, you know what they're needed for.
And what have they done? They've taken them out of there.
I know.
And it's a hot mess now.
I know. Or they take positions with sterile supply services, surgical equipment firms, vendors, they work for
Synthes and
different surgical instrument companies and sell them, which is excellent. An excellent
A lot
career.
of techs go there.
So by the numbers, it's about a median annual salary of $50,000. It takes 1 to 2 years of higher education, and there's a 9% job growth projected from 2020 to 2030.
That's one of those careers that I had never heard of in high school. Now, I know I'm going back a little ways. I never heard of it. No. And it wasn't until a recovery room nurse told me, oh, no, they have these people in there called surgical techs. I'm like, oh, what do they do? It was the best move of my life. And I still love to scrub.
I do too.
the only reason I went to nursing school is because I knew I could not physically handle scrubbing as I got older. And even now, we've done a couple of the doubles. And one of them I was scrubbed, 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I couldn't even move the next day.
I don't know how people do that for 30, 40 years.
I couldn't. I was like, I can't be doing this in my 50s.
I did it for the money, but
I loved it. I thought it was a great job.
Yeah.
I still love scrubbing. I liked doing it when I started because everything was open. Now it's more technical.
I know. Now it was
I miss
fun
the
then.
open cases. And in fact, I was talking to one of the surgeons who's younger, and he said something like, honey, you don't realize back then they didn't have all that equipment. Like I think we were talking about he wanted to know how we were doing the cranies in the rooms that we did them in. I'm like, the microscope lived in there.
Yeah.
I said, well, that was it. Like there wasn't all this other crap in the room. Like there was no CAT scans and MRIs and all this other stuff. You just did a cranie and you opened the whole head and like, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And it was a lot more fun.
Yeah. I found out about it because I had gone to UMass. I didn't like sociology. So then I went to just take prerequisites at Bunk Hill because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I don't know, it must have been in the catalog or something. My mouth is like, what's this surgical technologist thing? It's only 9 months. Like,
the 9 months
it's only 9 months. Like, and I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, I can try that. It's only 9 months. I was 18.
Yeah.
What's 9 months? And I did it and I loved it.
I loved it.
But I started doing it. And then I was like, these nurses are coming in and relieving me to do this job. And they're making 3 times what I make.
It took me 10 years to get there.
Yeah.
Because for me also, like, I didn't live way at school. I had a mother who was very good, but wanted me tight, and surgical tech allowed me to get out.
Yeah.
And so I started traveling, and that was 3 years right there. I was having too much of a good time to go back to nursing school, and it gave me those opportunities.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it makes a lot of money. I didn't need it. They were paying for everything.
Right.
So for those kids out there who don't quite know what they want to do and they want to step into the medical field a little at a time, it is a great career. It really is.
It's a good career just over. You can have that career for your whole life. Right. It is hard on your body.
Yeah.
But if anything, it's a great introductory career to be like, oh, wow. And it opens your eyes to so many other. I think we're going to go over more jobs like on different episodes. Because
all the people in your neighborhood.
You don't know these jobs exist unless you work in a hospital.
Right.
You literally don't know
Which is shameful to me.
It is.
Like when you do these job fairs, it's always like, business, teacher, nurse, doctor, lawyer. Like there's so many other careers out there that you don't find out until you're either starting to dabble in different things. And I don't think it's fair because there's so many kids out there who just don't necessarily want to do 4 years right off the get-go. Mm-hmm. So anyway, surgical tech is a great
career and if you're not sure, it's just a great introduction to healthcare.
Right. So once you're a surgical technician, you can become a surgical first assist, which I used to think about, but if you work in a teaching hospital, you're never going to be used. This is really for somebody in a very community, rural-based area where you only have one surgeon. Because even in a bigger community, you might have 2 surgeons come in and help each other from the same practice.
But they do use, the community hospitals around here do use first assist.
Right. Yeah. And so it's something that you're not going to be in a big hospital using this. They are registered healthcare professionals who provide continuous, competent assistance under direct supervision of the operating surgeon throughout the process and the procedure. So the duties of an SFA, as they are known: cauterizing wounds and vessels. I love the way they listed these, right? Because packing sponges in the body, positioning patient to maintain circulation and access for surgeon, placing clamps and sutures, closing skin and suturing, helping with suction and irrigation, helping with hemostasis, immobilizing patient on the OR table. They can be used in all surgical specialties. When we say surgical specialties, any body system you have is a specialty. Cardiovascular, urinary, GYN, colorectal, eyes, bones, neuro, like they all have their own specialty. So when they say that, that's what they mean. The education is dictated by the CCAEHP, which is the Commission on, I can't even read what I wrote. Commission on, I don't know what I wrote. It's the CCAEHP. I was getting lazy by this point. Graduates from an accredited CCAEHP program, and they need to pass a national board exam. It can be a 1 to 2 year program, depending on where you go, and not every state employs them, and not every insurance company will cover them. A lot of them have to be sponsored by a surgeon, because they then have to allow them to do the clinical hours with them so they can practice suturing and they can practice all this because you do need to do it on the human body. There are RNFAs, which are nurses in the OR who are doing the exact same thing. One of my girlfriend has this. You have to have 1 to 2 years of OR experience. They want you to be a CNOR, which is a certified nurse operating room. They also take a national exam. The information came from surgicaltech.net. So again, RNFAs are also sponsored by surgeons. Usually they'll go up and be like, I remember one of the girls in cardiac was doing it, and she went up to the cardiac surgeons and they would allow her to close and everything. But again, in a resident hospital, they're letting them do it all because it's more important for them to learn than you. Right. This is much more of something in a community-based hospital. So that was all we had on these. Yeah. And so we're going to add some completely random info to the end of this because we were sitting at work last night and somebody's like, oh, did you hear this on the news? Yeah. So Laura's got, and both of us are like, what? What is this? So then I start Googling and I go back to November of last year and find something else that was going on locally. And so we're going to cover those two because they're crazy.
What was that?
Breaking news. As Gary used to say in the pool, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news.
So I got this from Channel 7. Yeah, Channel 7.
What is it, WGBH?
What is Channel 7 now? Yeah, GBH?
Is it GBH? HDH?
No. Whatever it is. Channel 7.
Channel 7 News.
So, title is, Ever Police Say One Woman Dead, Another Injured During Liposuction Procedures Done at Home.
What the fuck is all I have to say about that.
Can you imagine these Ring doorbells with this video on it? So, home security video captured a first responder going into an Everett duplex with a stretcher, with firefighters saying the call was for a person who was, quote unquote, bleeding. Everett police told 7 News there was an investigation into whether the patient was hurt during liposuction performed in a home.
Can you even imagine what they were doing it with?
No. Around the same time, Somerville police said they were called to a multifamily home on Central Street for a medical emergency. 7 News has learned that the two incidents may be connected. On Friday morning, Mass State Police troopers were seen on camera returning to the Everett home. 7 News learned that a death investigation was underway for one of the patients. No one in either homes responded to requests for comments. And then today, and they broke, the story broke further. Yep. They had, someone was doing at-home liposuction at the house in Somerville, where they got the second call from. One of the women, the 2 women were there having liposuction. One woman had her liposuction and went home to Everett. So that's why that medical emergency happened at Everett. And then they called for the one in Somerville as well. The one in Everett died. The one in Somerville is alive.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. Were they giving each other liposuction?
No, someone was giving them
because I thought this was like ding dong, Avon calling, I'm your home liposuction.
Yeah, I think someone, they got somebody to come in and give liposuction at this person's home.
I'll tell you what, Laura.
If a deal is too good to be true, it's too good to be true. It is not a good deal.
I don't know what is wrong with people. When you hear, I had somebody come in for Botox and I'm like, oh, what's that on your nose? She's like, well, I went to a basement in Chelsea to have eyeliner tattooed on, and it was in the closet. And when they, somebody came in and hit the door and she tattooed across my nose by accident. Why are you getting your eyelids tattooed in Chelsea basements?
Why?
Why are you having liposuction done in your parlor in Salem? I mean, in Somerville.
Or Salem.
Why
Either
are
one.
you
Don't
having
do it.
medical procedures done in somebody's house?
I don't think people understand how dangerous liposuction is.
Liposuction is violent.
It's the most violent thing, other than a C-section probably, that I've ever seen. Yep. It is hugely violent. And you're
hugely dangerous.
Injecting people with a fluid first.
Yeah.
That is dangerous if it gets into your vasculature. That you can have an embolism. It's dangerous. Then you're sticking a cannula up with suction on it and just ramming it around in and out, like you're being stabbed with this cannula. If you are not a board certified plastic surgeon who knows the correct ways to do it, even if you are, you can still make a mistake because it is a dangerous surgery. But if you're not a board certified, know how to do the technique exactly correctly, and we're trained for years and years and years on doing it, you should never be doing this to anybody.
Okay, let's just let's just say somebody who knows exactly what they're doing. Francine, the surgeon, shows up to your Somerville home. Your Somerville filthy home.
Right.
Do you know the infections?
I know.
You are like, your dog's there, your cat's there, fucking dust from last Christmas is there.
Right.
Don't tell me they're coming into a sterile hospital environment. Right. You're in my kitchen.
Right.
Like this
where I had chicken on the counter.
Exactly.
Like you can't, yeah.
The infections these people can get. I am horrified by this. I am fucking horrified by this story. And you hear it all the time. We get patients all the time. Well, I went down to the Dominican and I wanted to get a butt lift. And, I went down to
It was only $1,000 there. Well, yeah, because it's not a legal thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I paid $30 for my boob job in Brazil. And look I only got one side because the other rotted off, but it was $30. Like, are you out of your fucking minds?
Right. And then you're paying for years of reconstruction. If you live.
If you live through the infection.
If you live. Mm-hmm. These people get septic and die all the time.
So we were talking to one of the trauma surgeons last week, and I'm like, hey, did you hear what happened? He's like, I worked in Miami. Mm-hmm. Now, we do a podcast on like a botched plastic surgery.
Yes,
we talk about some of this stuff. So feel free to go back and listen to it because we do talk about some in-depth cases of this. But he's like, there was a group of doctors. They would open up in a strip mall, which Miami is infamous for this on strip malls. And they would do all this liposuction in areas of the body that is taboo to do liposuction on. And they would get necrotizing fasciitis, which is that flesh-eating bacteria. And now not only are you thinner, you have no abdominal wall left.
Right. You can't sit up.
You got quite a liposuction. You've rotted your abdominal wall off. Yeah. He said, and they would do this for 3 months, kill a couple of people, close up shop, open up another name, a mile down the road. He goes, they kept us in business for a long time and nobody's shutting them down. Yeah. Do not bargain shop plastic surgery. No. If I can say anything else, do not bargain shop plastic surgery.
Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. If you really want it, save and save and save and save and go to a board certified plastic surgeon in a medical center that is well known and get your plastic surgery.
Shocking. Yeah. Fucking shocking. So in Revere, we have a med spa owner. He goes by the name of Victor Moore, and I'm only saying it because he's on the news. Describes himself as a surgeon who performs cosmetic procedures in the booming medical aesthetic industry. He's been on billboards in his scrubs promoting treatments for his business. He is a surgeon, and he does cosmetic procedures, he says in a podcast that he told last year. Well, he claims that he went to med school in Mexico and that he finished his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston.
Wow.
So this podcast...
So he's a well-trained physician.
Yeah, okay. So you would think. This podcast describes him as a miracle worker. He's got a great touch, blah, blah, blah. He had been working as the director of a clinical education at a popular medical aesthetic training program in Waltham, teaching people how to do Botox and filler and all these other things. I mean, these programs, I went to one myself, these programs are everywhere. What I am going to tell you is be very careful who you get Botox and filler from because you get an 8-hour course and they're practicing on your face. So you make sure you go to somebody who's been doing it for a little while, who has already practiced on other people's faces, and be very careful when it comes to filler because filler can blind you and can really hurt you.
Unless you're friends with Nicole, and then you just let her do it. Right. For some reason.
I don't do filler anymore because of that reason. I'm too far along in my career to lose my license. So, Fox 25 investigators found he is not allowed to perform the exact same procedures he teaches because he is not allowed to practice medicine in Massachusetts.
Oh.
Yeah. The State Board of Registration in Medicine doesn't list him as a physician in Massachusetts.
Oh, my God.
And they confirmed they have no record of him. His name is removed from his mentor's website, and he's no longer employed there. All of the staff of Aesthetic Mentor are aware that he is a physician and that he is not licensed to practice medicine in the United States. They're saying they're aware of that now, but they were letting him practice medicine all along. All right, so he provides proof that he graduated from medical school in Mexico and during his 3 years there, while he was working there, he was allowed to perform any procedure which required treatment of patients. Dr. Gary Mendez is the vice president of the Mass Academy of Dermatology and a board-certified surgeon. He said licensing helps to ensure a doctor or medical provider has the appropriate education and training. That's why we do this. Speaking about the medical aesthetic industry, he said 90% plus of all these procedures that are performed are complication-free. But it's knowing how to deal with the complications that is what makes it safe or unsafe. So yes, you can go 42 liposuctions at home, but when it goes to kill you, this person doesn't know what the fuck to do for it because they're not trained.
And they pack up their liposuction and run.
He said, let me tell you this, going to medical school gives you the authority to call yourself a doctor. Yes, you graduate medical school and you are a medical doctor. It doesn't mean you know what the fuck you're doing if you haven't done a residency, right? So Ted Daniels, we all know who Ted Daniels is. He spoke with Maury in September to ask him his background. I was a surgeon in Mexico, he says. He provides him with his 2001 degree in surgery from La Universidad del Norte in Tampico, Mexico. And the latest stating that he did a 2-month clinical rotation at Mass General Hospital in January to February of 2001. He tells reporter Ted Daniels that he assisted in the surgeries of his rotation. The clinical rotation usually lasts 1 to 3 months, while a residency is 3 or more years in a training program. So what he is saying is, this kid came up from Mexico during med school, and he did an observation 3 months at Mass General. We get them all the time from other countries doing an observation in the United States. That's what he is claiming is his 3-year finishing his residency. Okay,
he's saying watching surgeries for
he's
2
saying
to 3
he was
months.
allowed to help while he observed.
Not a chance. Okay.
So a clinical rotation that lasts 1 to 3 months is not. It's just a clinical rotation. It's like if you go in nursing school, you do 3 months in maternity. It doesn't make me a maternity nurse. No. I do 3 months in the ICU. Does not make me an ICU nurse. No. Residency is a 3 or more year training program done after completing medical school and after your internship year. So in an email, the MGH physician who signed Moray's rotation letter told 25 Investigates he did not perform surgery. He was only an observer. I have a feeling who I might think who this guy is. A spokesperson from La Universidad del Norte said she could only confirm the authenticity. She could confirm he had a degree. That's all she could confirm. She didn't know what his residency looked like, what his rotations looked like, blah, 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 blah. So in 2011, he pleaded guilty to practicing medicine without a license and distributing the pain blocker lidocaine when an office he was renting in Revere was raided by state and federal law enforcement.
You can kill somebody with lidocaine.
Yep. I was watching, I don't know if I was watching something in the ER, whatever. And this young girl was going to have her legs waxed, or she was having electrolysis. You know, it's painful. So she covered her legs in lidocaine jelly and then wrapped them in saran wrap.
Oh, God.
And then it caused her to have to pass out while she was driving, and she got in a car accident and died.
Oh, my God.
Because you have opened all your blood vessels.
Yeah.
Like, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that shit. All right. So he pleads guilty. His arrest followed a month-long investigation where he was accused of performing liposuction and other medical procedures with stolen medical supplies and a stolen prescription pad. He was sentenced to probation. In a 2010 statement about the arrest, the Suffolk County DA's office said Hernandez would perform liposuction, mesotherapy, and other procedures for prices that ranged from $2,500 to $9,000. And that is all cold, hard cash.
Wow.
All right. So he owns Boston Cosmetic and Laser, which I Googled is still open in business.
I was going to say, he does this still.
He still does this. But, so this med spa has a location in Everett and Revere. The services include Botox, dermal fillers, plasma injections, and laser hair removal. He only does administrative work at the med spas, he says. I learned my lesson, he says, speaking about the decade-old arrest. Morey says licensed professionals perform all the medical procedures at his med spas, and he said they practice under the supervision of a licensed MD he contracts with.
Okay.
I think that's bullshit. The State Department of Public Health says it has no complaints against him on file. In a statement, he said his work at Boston Cosmetics is limited to answering phone calls, checking patients in and out, and responding to questions about procedures. Quote, on occasions, I interact with patients, he said. My wish and my goal have always been to help people look and feel better about themselves. Yeah, you bullshit. Multiple posts referring to him as a doctor have been removed from the Boston Cosmetic and Laser social media pages. They spoke with a former patient who said she went to the office in 2015 for laser hair removal. He did not perform the procedure, but he examines her face when she complained about the results. He totally presented himself as a licensing doctor.
Oh my God.
He had a certificate framed on the wall.
Oh my God.
In online interviews, other customers said they have been very happy with the results. One customer wrote in Yelp, "Victor is great. She probably got free Botox for writing that."
Yeah.
So more than a month after they investigate him, Investigate Forbes first asked him to verify that he's a let's see, what is there? They're saying the last time he is saying, that he goes back to Mexico and he's allowed to perform surgery in Mexico. And that the last time he performed surgery in Mexico was 2021. He did not mention his current practice in Mexico during the interview they did with him in September, because this all came out about the end of last year. He says, "I do not practice cosmetic surgery or perform any medical procedures in Massachusetts because I do not have a license to do so. I do, however, have a license to practice cosmetic surgery in Mexico and perform procedures there. I work with a practice in Mexico when I work with patients." He's probably out of Tijuana where everybody else is getting killed. He has active hospital privileges in 2 hospitals in Tampico, Mexico. And both letters that came in stating this were both dated the same day they were emailed to 25. 25 also, during this whole investigation, gets a legal letter saying that if they investigate any more, report any more on this guy saying that he's not a real doctor, that they're going to get sued.
Oh.
So I would stay away from Boston Laser Center and Revere and Everett. I'm just saying. Who's really monitoring these people?
Right.
And in Massachusetts, where we're highly academic, and I would think that we would have a better monitoring system, but the Department of Public Health, which is probably severely understaffed and underpaid, is what's monitoring all these. So this is a podcast that really took 2 sides.
Yeah, different, very different.
But yeah, I mean, I can't believe people are going out there and doing this shit. I can't.
Don't cheap out
on plastic surgery.
It sounds great. Like, it's great.
Watch Botched. Yeah. Watch Botched for 5 minutes.
The amount of pain, your life's going to be affected. You can't work. Like, you're going to lose so much more. Yeah. Like,
the mentally, what it does to you, because I mean, these poor people come in and they're like, "I went for the boob job," and their boobs are deformed.
Well, I had one lady come in. I don't remember where she had gone, somewhere out of country. And I think it was like a tummy tuck. And I'm not kidding you, it looked fabulous. Like, I was like, holy shit, this lady looks great. Riddled with infection.
Oh.
The second we opened, riddled with infection. Like, I was like, she's lucky she's alive. Like, did they do a great job to the eyes? Yes. Yeah. And if they put those pictures up, I'd be like, shit, I'll go get that. Like, She looked great, but riddled with infection.
Yeah. I mean, let alone the skill they need to give you a good looking job. You need to have your surgical tech in there, making sure it's sterile.
Yes.
Because a lot of implants, if they get infected, forget about it. Mm-hmm. And you're putting meshes in, you're putting, surgical implants in, the BBLs with the weird shit they're injecting into people's skin to get for what? So you can have a fat ass? You know what? Go have a couple of cheeseburgers. You'll have a fat ass too, wow. You don't need to be putting harmful shit in your body. For what end?
No. And if that stuff, which is on the surgical tech, is not cleaned, if those cannulas they're using to take that fat out were not cleaned properly, other people's shit is still in those cannulas. And that's up to your surgical tech to check those when they open. Yeah. If you're not trained properly, that shit's not happening.
It's disgusting. Yeah. It's disgusting. So, on that note, guys, we've kicked off summer.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about our world famous summer series yet.
Oh, God, no.
What are we going to do this year, Laura? Jeez. Right in. Give us some ideas. Yeah. We already did lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. So I'd like to get some good maulings, though. I'd like to have some good, good dismemberment stories or something.
You really like those.
Like a good meat and potatoes. Ugh. I need something.
I'm sure you'll find one.
All right. So everybody enjoy your summer. Be safe. Wear helmets. Watch what you're drinking and doing.
Yep.
And have a great summer.
Don't cheap out on plastic surgery.
Do not cheap out on plastic surgery.
It's too late now anyway. Summer's already here.
All right. And we're going to have a few drinks and talk about how we're going to kick off the summer series. Okay. Have a great night.
Bye.
Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsandscrubs@gmail.com.